Fam, what's going on? It is Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. I appreciate you guys being here for the updated AP Top 25 as of November 10th. Let's look at it in full screen. I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you so much for joining me today following Alabama's victory over LSU. Now, this is just in. I think it was updated, 15, 20 minutes ago. You got Oregon, who moves to the number one spot, or they retains number one, rather. You have Ohio State, also from the Big Ten, 8-1 on the season, following a win over Purdue. You have Texas from the SEC at 8-1 on the year, with a really good win over Florida. Right, you had a lot of Coach Saban assistants playing. Right, we were talking about that. That was really interesting. You have Texas at 3, as we mentioned. You have Penn State at 8-1. We're going to go into detail in just a minute. Let me walk you through it. Indiana at 5. Now, what's interesting here is you have 4 out of the 5 top teams right now from the Big Ten. Right, Indiana and Ohio State play here. I think if it's not this week, it's the week after. Then you have Tennessee at 8-1, beating Mississippi State. Yeah, BYU, who won in controversial fashion last night, or at least according to the Utah athletic director. Hey, you got to win the game, right? 9-0 on the season. You have Notre Dame at 8-1. Alabama moves to number 9, right? Up from 11. Ole Miss, Georgia, Miami. Miami suffering its first loss of the season to Georgia Tech. And you have Boise State, SMU, from the ACC, Texas A&M, Army, who's 9-0, Clemson, and Colorado. Obviously, there's a couple more teams on the back end, but these are the teams that we are focusing on. I appreciate you guys being here. Kyle Henderson of Bama Football on YouTube. Now, this is there's a website. I'll put the link in the description box, and it's really well put together. And I'm going to go back and talk about the AP Top 25. But when you look to the SEC football standings right now, this is how it looks for you guys to get an update and an idea. So this is the website. And the website, I want to read it out there because they deserve some props. It's called bballornothing.net. So what they've done is they've put together, obviously the records are pretty easy to put together, but if you go to bballornothing.net, I'll put the link in the description, you can play around with different scenarios as you move forward in the SEC. Now, when we look to which teams could qualify for the SEC championship game, remember it's number 1 versus number 2. So, for example, if the SEC championship game was to take place today, Texas A&M and Tennessee would play. Of course, not all teams have finished out their schedule. Fun site to go check out. I'll put the link in the description. But what they have here is you can play around with the different scenarios. For example, November 16th, now the teams highlighted in red are the teams that are favored to win. So let's just say all of the teams in red win out. Okay, those are the favorites. For example, like November 16th, we think Texas is going to beat Arkansas. We think LSU is going to beat Florida. We think Georgia is going to beat Tennessee. And we think that South Carolina is going to beat Missouri, right? Upsets happen, whatever. But the red indicates the teams that would win. If that happens and you click calculate standings, it's a fun site to go check out. This is what it looks like based off the SEC tiebreaker rules. Really interesting. So you would actually have Texas finish out the season 7-1. That's if they beat Texas A&M on the back end, followed by Alabama, right? LSU, Georgia. So that's how it could shake out. And in that case, I mean, you could have Alabama playing for an SEC championship. Now, I've seen other models to where it has Texas and LSU. It's all rat poison because you have to continue to win out, but it's a fun site to check out. And when we look to Alabama's overall chances, now what I did here was I went to the ESPN playoff predictor. Anybody can do this and just type in ESPN playoff predictor. We'll go back to the AP Top 25. I'll let you guys see it. And I get it. We're only looking at the college football playoff rankings. The next update will come on Tuesday night, and we'll be live for that as well. But here are the teams with the best percentages to make the field of 12. So you have Oregon 95, Indiana 93, Ohio State, you can see it. Alabama at 76 after their victory over LSU. Now what's interesting here is if you can play around with the model, and what I did was I selected that Alabama actually does not make the SEC championship game. For whatever reason, and based off the particulars, it doesn't seem to me like they're going to make the championship game. And we're going to talk about that in a second. But if Alabama doesn't make the SEC championship game and they finish out 10-2, this model has Alabama as a number 8 seed hosting number 9 Notre Dame. In fact, it predicted Alabama to win the entire championship. But if you look to the top left, it says to make the playoffs with a 10-2 record, not making the SEC championship game, 99%. That's how critical that game was last night against LSU. Now, a first round bye, clearly because they wouldn't be in the SEC championship game. They wouldn't be hosting in the quarterfinals. But to host a first round game, almost 70%, right? And to be a first round visitor, 32%. So basically, what that tells us is if they finish out 10-2, take care of business, do not make the SEC championship game, high probability that Alabama is 5, 6, 7, 8 hosting a game for the playoffs. I like that matchup. And we kind of went around back and forth talking, does one conference equal another? Clearly it doesn't. I mean, where would BYU, for example, and bless their hearts, they've had an amazing season, but where would they be in the SEC? Where would Indiana be in the SEC, right? The Big Ten, I think, is top heavy. And I do think that Ohio State and Oregon are real contenders, but I don't think the same thing about Indiana. I think they've had a really good season. They can prove us wrong. What's up, Tony? I appreciate you being here. So the SEC is crazy. As you know, there's going to be a bunch of teams, I would imagine, with 2 losses. Georgia and Tennessee play this next week. I'm taking Georgia. I would imagine most of you guys do. Here's a look at the ACC, right? You know what's amazing is SMU just rolls into the ACC and they go undefeated so far. And I don't think they play Clemson on the back end. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a tiebreaker system to figure out the ACC as well. You got SMU and probably Miami. Now, the winner of the championship game will get a first-round bye. So don't count Miami out in terms of hosting just yet. But I wasn't surprised to see them lose. Of course, there's tiebreakers in every conference. I mean, to be honest, if you really wanted my honest opinion, I don't think that any of those teams belong in the top 12. I just don't. I think that this conference has been lackluster. I haven't believed in any of these teams here. Look, it's great that you're having, that you're winning games or whatever, but it's not the same. So I don't like any of these teams from the conference, but one of them will get a playoff game or to host a playoff game. Here's another conference, too. And look, Colorado is rising. They are 7-2 on the season. They are number 18 in the top 25. Be curious to see where they move up in the college football playoff rankings. I would imagine 15-18. Now, if Colorado continues to win, right, they play Utah next in Boulder. They go to Kansas to take on the Jayhawks, and then they will host Oklahoma State on the back end. Now, if Colorado is able to get to that championship game and beat BYU, you imagine the TV ratings if Colorado is hosting? How about this? What if Alabama somehow finishes out and Alabama's the 5 seed and Colorado is the 4 seed and you have Alabama going to Boulder? Like, the scenarios are crazy. I get it. It's all rat poison because you have to finish out, but it's fun to think about. So Colorado not out just yet. They are 7-2. And I mean, who would win, honestly? Would BYU, who do you guys got? If BYU and Colorado were to play right now, who would you take? BYU or Colorado? Type B for BYU, type C for Colorado. I don't know. I think I might take Colorado. Which would be crazy because Colorado wins the Big 12. Bama, wherever they finish out, maybe they finish out as the number 5. Bama would have to take care of business against the 12 seed, maybe Boise State, and then would be traveling to Colorado. See, a lot of people taking Colorado. Man, I think, look, you'd have to do some far-out percentages, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that there could be a matchup with Alabama maybe going to Boulder. Has Alabama ever played in Boulder? Wow. J-Dub's taking BYU, but most everybody that I've seen is taking Colorado. Who knows? All rat poison. But still fun to think about. this is the Big 10 or the Big 16 or whatever you want to call it. Indiana is up at the top because they have a 10-0 record. I guess it's tied with Oregon. And then you have Ohio State right there. You also have Penn State, who's 8-1. I think there's 2 contenders and I think there's 2 pretenders, right? I think we'd all agree on that. And I've asked this several times. Does anybody in the chat believe that Indiana could beat Ohio State here in a couple weeks? Hey, Ricky, yeah, I appreciate that Colorado and Bama played, but have they played in Boulder? Hey, Bama Productions, man, we're going to do the call-in show tomorrow. But I don't think, has Alabama ever went down to Boulder, right? All right. So Indiana or Ohio State, sound off inside the comment box. I guess type I for Indiana and type in O for Ohio State. I mean, you got to think that Ohio State is able to win this game. I was even surprised that Indiana beat Michigan, to be honest. But here we are with a 10-0 record. Yeah, 4 teams. I mean, surely there's not going to be 3 teams. I mean, is there going to be 3 teams from the Big Ten that make the playoffs? I don't know. Talk about Kalen DeBoer in just a second. There's some people checking in. Here's the I'll run through this one more time in case you missed out on this. This is the AP Top 25. This came out about, 15, 20 minutes ago. Oregon 1, Ohio State 2. And remember, the AP does not have really anything to do with the playoffs. The college football playoffs will be updated on Tuesday night. Next King, what's up, man? Not one of those top 5 teams will sniff the championship. Appreciate you, man. So you got Oregon, Ohio State, 4 out of 5 from the Big Ten. Texas at number 3. Tennessee at 6. You know what? I was doing some show prep. What was the injury with Nico from Tennessee? Is he like, was it serious? I didn't see. I heard he got injured, and someone said he's not going to play against Georgia. Was there somebody that saw it? I'll look it up on the after the show. That was something that I forgot to do. But Tennessee's at 6 with only 1 loss in SEC play. You got BYU. You got Notre Dame. I even think Notre Dame's a pretender, to be honest, if you really want to know the truth. Ole Miss with the first good win. I mean, that was the biggest win under Coach Lane Kiffin, in my opinion. Then you got Georgia. You got Miami. I mean, Miami might have knocked themselves out of the playoffs. Yeah, Boise State, SMU, Texas A&M, Army, Clemson, and Colorado. I know there's top 25. We're covering these teams. You can just pull up AP Top 25 to see the full list. And I'll add that for tomorrow's show. As I mentioned, these are the current records, and this is bballernothing.com. You got to check out this website. It's really cool because it breaks down in terms of projections, right? Like, here are the standings right now. And if you play around with the model, you can pick and choose these teams. So you can pick the November 16th matchups, the 23rd, and the 29th for all conferences. And this site has put together a formula for tiebreakers. So if all this goes to plan right here, if all these teams win, and I would imagine that it's close, you would get something like this. Texas versus Bama, LSU, Georgia, A&M, something like that. And you can go into the weeds on that website. It's really cool. I don't know. To be honest, I don't think that Alabama will make the SEC championship game. And in fact, like I don't know if you want to make the SEC championship game, because you know what? I think if Alabama was to finish out 10-2, let's say that works out and they play Texas, right? I would imagine that, let's just say Texas wins that game. I think they would penalize Alabama and they wouldn't let a 10-3 Alabama. It would basically be like a playoff game for Alabama and they'd be knocked out. So it would be better to finish 10-2 after a win in Auburn, sit out the SEC championship game, host a first round game, and then go on the road, right? I know. What a crazy year and what a crazy sequence to where you don't need to go into the SEC championship game, and that would be better for you. I get it. Like, you win that game, high stakes game. You play, like, I don't know, for Texas, for example. There's a lot on the line in that game, clearly. It's an NFL-type game. Guys are going to get banged up. Now, on the flip side, you win that game, you probably are seeded number 2 behind the Big 12, the Big 10 champ, whoever goes undefeated. So, I mean, I don't know. I think a 10-2 Bama and I don't know, LSU and Texas play for the conference championship game, and I think Bama's in. I mean, right now, as I mentioned, if you're just joining late, this is the ESPN playoff predictor updated after last night, has Alabama with a 76% chance to make the college football playoffs. Penn State, Texas, Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon up top. Tennessee, Georgia, Boise State, you can read the rest. I ran through this real quick. There's some people who just jumped on. They might have missed this. I punched in the playoff predictor, and it came out like this with Alabama not playing in the SEC championship game. It gave them a 99% chance to make the playoffs and a 68% chance to host a first-round game. Remember, first-round games that will be hosting are seeds 5, 6, 7, and 8. Where will Alabama be? I have no idea. I mean, they gotta win the rest of the games. Here's a look at the ACC. We talked a little bit about this. Big 12 and the Big 10. Adam, what's up, man? I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for the super chat, man. Adam says, Kyle, we should be number 1. No, I'm sorry. Kyle, we should be number 5. Ohio State 1, Oregon 2, Texas 3, Ole Miss 4, Bama 5, 6, Tennessee. You know, I wrote it down. So the college football playoffs will be updated on Tuesday. And I did this last night after Alabama beat LSU. So this is what I went with, Adam. And I appreciate the super chat, man. Call in tomorrow so we can have some dialogue. Curious to get your take on the play of Jalen Milroe. I know we're always going back and forth on that. Guy rushes for 4 touchdowns last night. A remarkable performance. So I had Oregon number 1. And again, I did this literally after the game. Oregon number 1, Ohio State number 2. Remember, Oregon beat Ohio State. I have Texas number 3. They only have 1 loss. I feel kind of weird saying this, but Penn State number 4. Again, I've said my piece against Penn State. I don't think they are number 4, but based on the college football rankings, I'm trying to predict what the committee would do, put them at number 4. Tennessee, number 5. Now, I think Tennessee drops a game this next week against Georgia. Indiana at number 6. I think they'll lose as well. BYU at 7. I guess Alabama or Notre Dame are 8 or 9. And then I have, I guess you got to get SMU in there somehow. Ole Miss and either Boise State or Georgia. Man, I have no idea what they're going to do if they're going to try to get a Boise State in the playoffs or not. But it's going to be hard to leave out some of these SEC teams. But I think, for example, if Georgia's able to beat Tennessee, that might be Tennessee's playoff play-in game. Because all the SEC teams are not going to have two losses outside of probably Texas, right? Is there anyone inside the comment box that thinks that Texas A&M beats Texas? Let's do a quick poll. Back end of the season, it's the last game of conference. Type A&M for Texas A&M and type T for Texas. Who do you think wins that game? I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think this chart has it back here. I think the game is at Kyle Field, right? If I'm not mistaken. I'll pull it up on another screen. I would imagine that Texas beats Texas A&M, but who knows? Elko's having a nice year. Texas A&M. Where's the game at? See, Eddie thinks that Texas A&M beats him. I mean, the game is at Kyle Field. So, can you imagine if Elko's able to beat Steve Sarkisian in the back end of the season? I mean, I would imagine it could happen. All right. Appreciate you guys being here. Let's talk real quick about Kalen DeBoer. I think last night, that victory, there was 2 people who needed this victory most in one unit. All right. Now, the first person who needed this victory is Coach Kalen DeBoer. You lose this game against LSU last night. I think, honestly, it was one of the most pivotal games that he's played in, probably as the program has played in a long time. It was kind of like almost like a make or break for him. That's how big the game was. You lose that game, you probably lose the locker room. You're not making the playoffs. You're probably going to start losing recruits. I mean, it's like a landslide of events because people start seeping in the minds. You can't win big games. You can't do this, blah, blah, blah. Kalen DeBoer can't win on the road. Kalen DeBoer, his approval rating is through the roof. I mean, go read all your websites. Everybody's talking about this man today. By the way, this looks very presidential, this picture. 15-3 all-time against top 25 opponents. I said this on my morning show. While everybody has kind of been up and down and fanatical about this year following Coach Saban, Coach Kalen DeBoer has remained even keel. You haven't seen him freak out. You've seen him handle himself with class. I mean, this guy has been heavily criticized every single week, even based off the attire that he wears. He's done a really good job coaching this team. I'm seeing more fire in the belly as we continue. But winning last night on the road against Brian Kelly and LSU, a team that is a big rival for Alabama, in the facet that, like, how the fashion that they did it in, right? Great offense, great defense. I kind of have my reserve about special teams. But that was 4 quarters of football, and that was a complete game. So you're only getting better and you're only getting worse. And you look at how they played against Missouri, a team that was really handcuffed because they had no offense. And you look at how they played LSU. LSU is a good football team, okay? Now, is Brian Kelly a good coach? I don't know. That's up for debate. But they have players on LSU. Every single year they do. Kind of like a mirror image of Alabama. It's just that Alabama has always had better coaching. Huge victory last night for Coach Kalen DeBoer. And I think, look, what are you doing against LSU? What are you doing against Tennessee? What are you doing against Auburn? Recruiting, what are you doing against the rest of the nation in terms of recruiting? He's number one in recruiting. The other person who needed this victory was Jalen Milroe. I mean, let me ask you, where was Jalen Milroe in terms of, let's just talk, first let's talk as a person, like with Alabama right now as the quarterback. A lot of people continue to, this is another person that gets a lot of heat all the time. He had to fight out of that slump. I mean, he went against 3 consecutive defenses that, very challenging. Still hasn't thrown a touchdown in 2 games. But, I mean, what he did last night, 4 rushing touchdowns, and kind of just taking over as the best player on the field. Coach Saban said going into this game, the winner of this game would be the quarterback that makes the least amount of mistakes. Garrett Nussmeier threw 2 interceptions. Jalen Milroe threw no interceptions. Limited bad plays. Moved the sticks. They controlled the time of possession, and they had big plays from Jalen Milroe. Nearly 200 yards rushing. In the past 2 games, Jalen Milroe has rushed for 8 touchdowns against LSU. Brian Kelly has no answer how to stop a running quarterback. They struggle with Texas A&M's running quarterback. Jalen Milroe's 5 times the guy he is. Jarvis chimes in with 311 rushing yards against LSU. What they have, 273 against Missouri. So I think as we turn towards the back end of Alabama's football season, 2 things. I think it might be this simple. Alabama wins as many games as possible, and they are the favorite in the games that they're playing if they run the football and establish a run game, whether that's with Jalen Milroe or Jam Miller or whatever you want to do, and if they play defense. I was concerned about going against LSU considering, Garrett Nussmeier beating them over the top. They didn't allow plays over the top. They tackled, for the most part, really good in open field. Garrett Nussmeier, he was going to get his regardless. But I don't think Oklahoma has a quarterback like Nussmeier. I don't think that Mercer does. I don't think that Auburn does either. Factual opinion, what's up? I agree. That was the game plan. The game plan wasn't to beat anybody over the top. The game plan was to run the football down their throat, and they did that. Alabama controlled the game. So DeBoer needed that victory. Jalen Milroe needed that type of play. And I think that overall boosts team morale. Approval rating through the roof for Coach Kalen DeBoer. Team's happy. Recruits continue to be happy. Jalen Milroe, monster performance. He gets confidence. And then I think the third is the Alabama defense. I said two people in one unit in the Alabama defense. This is another component of the Alabama football team that has been criticized, right? Criticize DeBoer, criticize Milroe, criticize the defense. The two inside linebackers for Alabama, I don't know where they are on mock drafts. If I had to put together a mock draft, I would draft Jahad Campbell in the top 10. Deontay Lawson, I think, is a first-round type guy as well. Now, this play right here by Deontay Lawson is one of the most athletic plays we've seen from an inside linebacker. Jumping up, snagging the ball in the red zone, elite. The overall play of Jahad Campbell, the way that he has played in the last 2 games, he's making himself a ton of money. He could play outside linebacker in the NFL. He could play outside linebacker here at Alabama. When he sends pressure, when he blitzes up the middle, how are you going to stop him? He's got speed. He's got size. He forced a fumble. He had 12 tackles. Deontay Lawson had 7. That's 19. Deontay Lawson came up with the interception. Jahad Campbell came up with a sack and a half, including a fumble. This team coming into this game was ranked number 4. You know what this defense doesn't get a lot of credit for? This team they get turnovers. They had 2 interceptions and a forced fumble last night. They were number 4 going in the nation going into this game. So the defense needed to absolutely show out, and they did that. Now, I don't know when these next playoff rankings come out where the teams are going to be. I don't feel that BYU deserves a bye. I would imagine, and as I said at the beginning of the show, there's a good chance that, or at least a chance that Colorado could be there and swap out the number 5 for maybe Alabama. Think about that. I'm not going to lie. I would love an Alabama versus Colorado matchup from like a coverage standpoint to be able to have Coach Prime on the YouTube channel. Yo, I'd of course love that. You got to take Miami out. I guess you put in SMU in these next rankings. The ironic thing is SMU is the first team out. You got to think Miami is now probably the first team out, and you put SMU at that 4 spot. I'm sorry, at the 4 spot, and you put BYU at 3, which is because didn't BYU beat SMU head-to-head? So BYU is going to go to 3, and then SMU to 4. That's what's going to happen. Wild. So these playoff, the bracket will be updated on Tuesday. But here's a teaser. I'll tell you exactly what it's going to look like. Oregon, number 1. Number 2 would be the SEC number 1, which right now it's going to be Texas. You know what's interesting, though, is Texas A&M is actually leading because they've won one more conference game than Texas. But I think they'd go Texas, number 2. Number 3 will be BYU, and number 4 will be SMU. And these were updated. This ranking, this is last Tuesday. But you know what, Adam? I would imagine that BYU could still be ahead of Bama because they're undefeated. So those rankings will be updated come this next Tuesday. Here's the AP Top 25. If you missed it, Oregon won, and remember the AP has nothing to do with the college football playoff rankings. Neither does the coaches poll. It's just we're talking about it because it gives us a little bit of a snapshot of how pollsters are feeling going into Tuesday. But the Tuesday is guys get in the room or whoever's on the playoff committee and they decide the fate of the teams, which is absolutely crazy still to me. But I feel better about the 12 team, I guess, than I did the top 4 or whatever the playoff system was before. 4 out of the 5 right now are from the Big Ten. Let me ask you, okay, so now that you've seen these teams right here, can you just list your true college football contenders, like teams you think can literally win the title? You know, it doesn't have whatever team you're following. If you're an Alabama fan, if you're from somewhere else, just tell me. Give me 5 contenders. This is the AP poll, Linda, and this is updated. Bama moved from 11 to 9, so they moved up. I would say, I guess contenders. I mean, let's go Oregon. We'll put them as a contender. I'll even throw Ohio State as a contender. I'll put Texas as a contender. I'll put Bama. And I'll put Georgia. Those are my 5. So Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Bama, and Georgia. Definitely not Indiana. My pretenders. Okay, so Arch Wolf, what's up, man? He's got Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, Bama, Ole Miss. And yeah, I think you can go either Ole Miss or Georgia. You know, I just find like if Georgia and Ole Miss were to play again for whatever reason, I'd probably take Georgia. I feel that they have a better ability to win big games than Ole Miss does. Like, I would like to see Ole Miss continue to do that on a consecutive basis. Maybe they can. I have no idea. I mean, Lane Kiffin, we all love him. Damn, Adam, I think you just nailed it, though. Because Carson Beck, what happened to him? Man, Carson Beck, how many interceptions has he thrown in the last 4 games? Like, I'm serious. It's crazy. It's like 13. Maybe I'd take Georgia out because of that. Tough as Nails has it. Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, Texas, Ohio State. Bama Champ has it. Oregon will find a way to choke. I could see that. Southern Red said, I wait to see who wins between that Tennessee and Georgia game. Yeah, I just is the line out yet for Georgia and Tennessee? I think if I had to handicap it right now, I'd probably say Georgia 5.5. Man, yeah, just a downplay for Carson Beck, absolutely. And then I think for pretenders, look, I not buying Penn State. Not buying Indiana. I get it. These guys are having great seasons. I'm not buying it. You know what? Even though Tennessee beat Alabama, I still don't see them as a team that can win a championship. I really don't. I don't think they have enough offense. And now, whatever the injury was with Nico, I don't know how serious it was or whatever. 8.5. Okay. Thank you, Jarvis. So Georgia is favored by 8.5, a little over a touchdown to beat Tennessee. I'd take that. So I think pretenders are Penn State, Indiana, Tennessee, BYU, Notre Dame. Those are my 5. Penn State has no offense. Their quarterback's good. Same thing with Indiana. Indiana's quarterback is really talented, and so is Penn State's. Tennessee has a good defense. BYU, come on, that's just they haven't played the schedule. And Notre Dame, they found a loophole to continue to be relevant. Nicholas, what's up, man? Appreciate you guys. Yeah, I think we'd all go heavy on Georgia beating Tennessee. Jarrell Franklin inside with the super chat. I think this is probably going to be one of the bigger questions that we talk about this week on all the message boards and all the YouTube channels is, would you rather Bama play in the SEC championship or skip and get a home playoff game? I'll get to you in just a second, Adam. So, you know what? Here's what I'm going to say. While I think it would be great to have a bye, I think that I'm really big on momentum. And I think that here's my example. So what I'm going to say is I would rather have Alabama as a 5 through an 8 seed in the playoffs. And here's why. Missing the championship game. Number one, I don't think you lose any momentum because you finish the season 10-2, right? And then you get ready to host a game at your home stadium in a playoff type environment, which gives you momentum should you win that game, right? Then you go on the road. You're accustomed to playing in big environments. Odds will probably be against you, but it'll be an opportunity to play on the road. You've already played a really difficult home schedule, right? You've played at Tennessee. You've played at LSU. You've played, at, who was the other one where they played? Oklahoma or Wisconsin, whatever. You played on the road before. But I think last year, and this is my example, I think Alabama does better when they keep playing games, because if Alabama, I still feel like this, if Alabama would have played Michigan the week after Georgia, I think they would have beat Michigan. But something happened to Alabama last year following the SEC championship game. They almost like regressed, and they played like they did at the beginning of the year against Michigan. It was weird. So I think you keep the momentum. You take that home playoff game, and you carry that momentum in. Now, it'll take calls tomorrow, Chris. I just wanted to come chit-chat with you guys for a minute. I appreciate you guys. Oh, and then tomorrow, what we're going to do, we got 450 on. I appreciate you guys. So what we're going to do tomorrow, we're going to build tomorrow's Veterans Day. As you know, I'm a very patriotic type person. I want to build out a board. So if you have served, if you're a veteran, or if you're currently serving, we are going to build a veteran graphic. So imagine this graphic right here with all of the names of the people that are watching that have served this great country. So tomorrow we'll do that. We'll have a good time. We'll have a civilian salute to those that have protected, are protecting, and who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for this great country. We understand that freedom is not free. Should be pretty fun. That'll be on Veterans Day. So here's a look one more time at the AP Top 25. Yeah, Javion, I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Look how dope this picture is. This is from the University of Alabama. You can follow them, of course, on their social media channels. I love this picture. There's LT Overton right here. Yo, these dudes, this was a huge win for Alabama yesterday. Here's a look at the current SEC standings. Again, go to this website. I'll read it out, and I'm going to put it in the description one more time so you can play with the different scenarios based on Alabama football. It's called bball.notnothing.net. bball.notnothing.net. It gives you the scenarios. So the teams in the red projected to win. If all those teams win, it comes out like this: Texas, Bama, LSU. So there's still an opportunity for Alabama to make the SEC championship game. Absolutely. Are they going to? I have no idea. You got to. It's all rat poison. You saw what happened after they beat Georgia in a high stakes game. They kind of started trending the opposite way. So now is a great time to block out that noise and keep winning. Every single game is a playoff game. This game against Mercer is another playoff game, right? I'm just really happy for Coach Kalen DeBoer, man, because this has been an absolute gauntlet of a college football season. I appreciate you guys being here, kicking it with me. I might come live later tonight. I have no idea. I'm feeling it. This is good. We need to get back to, feeling that confidence, because I think going into this game, there was a lot of anxiety. There's been a lot of anxiety going into this year. I think this is the first time I've ever covered the team that they've had 2 losses before November. So I think a lot of people felt that Alabama was already out of the playoffs. Not the case. How are you playing as of late? Alabama playing some really good football. I appreciate you guys being here. I hope you're having an amazing Sunday. As news happens, I got you covered right here on Bama Football on YouTube. Please hit the thumbs up on this video. If you have questions for me, you can post them inside the comment box. I really appreciate you guys being here. Tomorrow's Veterans Day. Remember to call those veterans, tell them thank you. We understand that freedom is not for free, and we appreciate you guys being here on Bama Football on YouTube. My name is Kyle Henderson of Bama Football, coming to you from beautiful Hollywood, Alabama. I'll catch up with you guys maybe later tonight or tomorrow at 10 a.m. as we go from 10 to 12:30 on Mondays. We'll take you all the way to Coach Kalen DeBoer. 5 Adams says, Kyle, if a 10-2 Alabama loses a championship and finish 10-3, and that was the thing that I was also saying. And that's why I'm saying that it would almost be better for Alabama to not make the SEC championship game, because let's say they play Texas for the title, and what if Texas beats Alabama, and then Alabama makes it to the championship game and they lose that game, and then they're out of the playoffs? I don't know. I mean, that's why you just keep winning. Let those other teams battle it out in the SEC championship, because right now, if Alabama just finished out with a 10-2 record, they're in the playoffs 100%. All right. I appreciate you guys. Enjoy your NFL. Eat some good food. Rest up. Be good people. And I'll catch you on the next video right here on Bama Football on YouTube. See you guys.